January 3rd, 2012. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. To the Republic.
Nobody's. You could look.
Kate, can we have roll call, please?
Sure. Casper? Here. Pureborn?
Here.
Bryson? Knudsen?
Here.
Shannon? Here. Williams?
Here. Okay. Been a long time since I've chaired a meeting, so we'll just... Sure. Any agenda or revisions, Richard?
The only thing is under item 9, new business. There's a dot point of other. There's no other tonight.
There's no other. Okay. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next section, and it's election of officers for 2012 for the chair and the vice chair position. For nominations. Anybody?
I'd nominate Eric Pureborn for chairman.
Is there any seconds
I would
or any
second
other
that.
nominations?
Second to move, we close the nominations.
I second that if I can.
Okay, nominations are... We have to formally close those, or...
Yes.
Okay. Motion to close the nominations.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, say...
Aye.
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 Okay. How are we going to vote here? Is it a show of hands, a straw poll?
Actually, normally,
There's only one
only one nominee.
one sucker in front of us. So.
So it could be other,
Yeah.
not the one above, but
Okay.
you just call for
We have a vote, please.
all in favor of Eric Pureborn as chair.
Aye.
Okay. Any nays? Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, I will chair. Nominations are now open for the position of vice chair. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Michelle Shannon.
I second.
Anybody else? And is there a motion to close the nomination?
So moved.
All those in favor of Michelle Shannon being vice chair, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations.
Yeah, same to you.
Thank you. We'll get through it, Michelle. It's all good.
I'm sure it'd never be a...
Okay. Okay, next, now that we have our officers in place, the minutes for the last meeting, for 20th, 2011. Everybody's had a chance to read them. Are there any changes or questions, or are we a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of December 20th, 2011 as written.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have public comments on non-agenda items and agenda items 7, 8, and 9. Does anybody wish to speak on any of these items? Hearing none, we have no final orders or resolutions or written communications. So next is public hearings, and I believe we have one public hearing tonight. And the public hearing is now open. It's 7.1. It's Lincoln Highlands Limited Partnership and Teeny Development, LLC. File PUD 2011-1. Request for a one-year extension of land approvals for the villages of Cascade Head, Planned Unit Development, and Preliminary Master Plan. Read this now. Okay. Let's see. Are there any objections to the Commissioner's jurisdiction? Planning Commissioners, are there any abstentions disqualifications based on conflict of interest, personal bias, or ex parte communications. Okay, staff will now read the substantive criteria for this hearing.
Lincoln City Municipal Code 17.52.210M, extension of approved preliminary master plan. Lincoln City Municipal Code 17.52.210D, allowable density. Lincoln City Municipal Code Section 17.52.210E, density bonuses. Lincoln City Planning Commission Final Order Number 98-17, Exhibit A, Zoning Condition 11, and Exhibit B, Planning Condition 3.
Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed to the applicable substantive criteria just described, or to other criteria that you believe apply to the subject of this hearing. Any person may raise an issue by testifying in person or by delivering a letter to the Planning Department no later than the close of the evident record of hearing. Failure within that time to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence to give the Planning Commission an opportunity to respond to the issue will preclude an appeal the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. In addition, failure by the applicant within that time to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the city to respond to the issues will preclude an action for damages based on those issues in the circuit court. Finally, prior to the close of the evidentiary record of this hearing, a participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. If the participant requests such an opportunity prior to the close of the evidentiary record, then the Planning Commission will either continue the hearing for at least 7 days, leave the record open for at least 7 days, to allow the submission of additional written evidence, arguments, or testimony. Before the staff presents a report, I would like to summarize the public hearing procedures which have been adopted by City Council. A brochure outlining these procedures is at the end of the City Council chambers. The staff will present the staff report and respond to any Planning Commissioner questions. After that, any person may speak for up to 3 minutes. If the Planning Commission has questions, your time responding to any questions will not be counted against your time limit. If you wish to speak, please write your name, mailing address clearly on the sign-in sheet at the entrance. Please speak directly into the microphone and begin by stating your name and mailing address. If you have written testimony to submit into the record, please provide a copy to the recorder. I'll get through this. Will staff please present its report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Back in 1996, the Planning Commission approved the preliminary master plan for the villages at Cascade Head, which is a 525-acre planned unit development. Ultimately was reduced a little bit in the number of units down to 1,829, which was the most recent approval on that. It was to be built in 3 major phases, the first being Rock Creek Village, and then within each phase there would be several blocks, which are just smaller areas. You can see in this graphic here, Road's End is off to the left here on the west side. The colored area is the Villages of Cascade Head property. This 60 acres up at the extreme north here has actually been rezoned open space, and that's owned by the city. But the rest of it is the Villages at Cascade Head. The Rock Creek Village is this area down in the southern part, right here near the southern entrance coming off the road into the golf course. West Devils Lake Boulevard is Fernwood? Maplewood. The lowest one.
The lowest one is Maplewood.
Maplewood. And then that has been partially developed, and above that is Fernwood, which is has been subdivided, and some of the infrastructure has been put in, but it is incomplete at this point. There was a complicated system of extensions that would be allowed for the approvals here. There was approval of the preliminary master plan for the entire development, and then there was a refined preliminary master plan for Rock Creek Village, that southern part. And as long as a master plan was approved for one of the blocks in Rock Creek Village, it would keep on, there would be 2-year extensions. That took them through, I think, until 2009. Then they asked for just an extension without a block approval, which was granted through January 2nd, 2011. In late 2010, they asked for another year extension, which was granted through January 3rd, 2012, which is today. They have requested another extension, a 2-year extension, to take them through January of 2014. Now, last year and that's what you're here to hear tonight. Last year, when the approval was granted, it was subject to a number of new conditions, which are in the staff report. I just want to hit a few of them. I'll say in general, most of them are incomplete. Items 2 and 3 required the property owners to enter into an agreement to pay for their proportionate share of the Port Lane water pump station, and item 3, their share of the West Devils Lake Road sewer pump station before tonight, and those 2 things have not been done. Then they had to complete in a manner acceptable to the city engineer the portions of all roads in the villages of Cascade Head PUD that are open to the public. And that's really just at the very entrance here, down here at the bottom again, serving Maplewood. That has not been done. And then condition 5 was before the initial asphalt lift on Fernwood Loop. They had to ensure that the roadbed meets current city standards as defined by the city engineer and make whatever repairs are necessary. That has not been done. Removing the vehicle wash station, condition 6 at the entrance to the development, that has been done. Item 7, restore the functionality of the stormwater system. That has, by September 30th, that was not done. Install erosion control measures in all disturbed areas and remove noxious or invasive plants from disturbed areas to the satisfaction of the city engineer by September 30th. I have that as complete, but I think it's more accurate to say that's been partly done. And I'll skip the next several because there's really nothing that needed to be done there. And then item 13, the property owner must submit a revision of the villages of Cascade Head to reflect the transfer of 46 acres to the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians to allow expansion of the golf course. On this map again that we have up on the PowerPoint, is this area here. This whole area was part of the villages of Cascade Head. These sort of gray areas were transferred out to the tribe, but the master plan for the development has not been changed yet. So that needs to be changed at some point, and there's a requirement that be done this year, and that has not been done. I know the applicants will explain to you, the circumstances for things not having been done. I'm just pointing out that what's been done and what hasn't. In order to get an extension, they also have to demonstrate, or you have to make a finding that the project is consistent with the existing standards for planned unit developments. That's part B of the staff report there. And what I did there was basically just copy verbatim what was in last year's staff report, because nothing has changed since then. The law hasn't changed and the conditions haven't changed. It was found to be consistent then, but I just needed to put it in the staff report here. Zooming in here, just back to the PowerPoint, I just want to show you a little bit again. This is the entrance coming in here. This is Maplewood, which is attached single family, again partly developed. Fernwood, this is extension West Devils Lake Boulevard, which has been completed up to right here. Well, the road's been put in, the final asphalt lift has not been put on it. Ultimately, we'll connect here with Voyage, and the golf course is down here at the bottom. Then, just showing the conditions right now at the entrance, the south entrance, which is right here on the map. There had been a vehicle wash station here, and it's been taken out, and the grading put in to connect the sidewalk here, which is an extra wide sidewalk as part of the Hit the Bay Trail, connect it down to another piece that was built by for the Beacon Crest Apartments just south of that. So it has been taken out and straw put down on where some grading was done. You can see what's been going on there. Again, these were taken this afternoon. And then within the PUD, you can see the concern was with the condition of the road bed here. The initial asphalt lift was put down, but not the final. There's been plants growing in the sort of crevice between the asphalt and the concrete of the gutter, and there's some concern about invasive species in the landscaping area. But again, the major invasive plants have been removed from that. More of the same. And within Maplewood, again, this is an area where some of the houses have been sold. They have residents living in them, but the final lift has not been put on the street yet. So you can see that there's sort of a temporary patching around the manhole areas so that they don't stick up too proud of the initial lift, and then where the driveway is, at the asphalt is not up to that, so there's a little bit of a lip there. It's more of the same. And this is an incomplete retaining wall. The forms, or not the forms, but the rebar was put in, but the concrete was never poured on that. So that's what I have on that. As I point out, there are a number of conditions that were not met, and I expect the applicants to explain why that's the case. It is allowed for you to say you don't have to meet those conditions, and we understand, and we grant you another year or another two, what have you, whatever you decide to do, if you decide to grant another extension. So the fact that they haven't met the conditions doesn't automatically preclude another extension. I want to make that clear. So
that was a question I was going to have for you, was how does staff feel about, I know it's tough economic times, and there's not a lot of movement in houses, and what's staff's opinion on?
Fundamentally, it's a good project. It's a good design. It's a good plan for the project. There's a lot of environmental protections built into it, and a good overall design. I have been reluctant to see it go away. I'll certainly say we're not opposed to the extension. Staff is not opposed to the extension.
Okay.
But the project, it does need revision. to reflect the fact that that property has been transferred out to the tribe. And I know the applicants have bought some additional adjacent land, and our law has changed on what can be in a PUD. And so I would expect a substantial change to the master plan if this continues in place. And if it doesn't continue in place, I would expect a new application to come in and with something different. So that's what I have.
Any questions of...
You mentioned there were a number of people living in homes there already?
Right. I think there's three occupied homes, I believe.
My question is, since I'm kind of new to this, what happens if we do not approve?
Sorry?
What happens if we do not approve this extension?
Then the approval goes away, so then there is no master plan in effect for the villages of Cascade Head. Those two areas, Fernwood and Maplewood, that have been subdivided would stay subdivided, but that's the extent of the subdivision. Mm-hmm. And so the rest of the project would not be subject to a master plan at this point. Someone wanted to develop them, if the applicants, or if they sold it to somebody else, or broke it up and sold it to several other people, they would have to apply for master plan approval for whatever properties they have that they want to develop, assuming that it's more than an acre or more than 10 units, because now we require all but the smallest subdivisions to go through the planned unit development process, which means you have a lot more authority to impose conditions and sort of shape the development rather than just what would be normal with a straight subdivision, where as long as they meet the density requirements and have enough road and so on, it gets approved. You don't have any choice on that. So there would be a lot more give and take, I guess, under those circumstances.
Wouldn't that trigger all kinds of new traffic studies and all kinds of stuff, though?
Conceivably, yeah.
Conceivably, yeah.
Yeah, because this was approved 16 years ago, almost 16 years ago. So yeah, I think times have changed since then.
Yeah.
So our law has changed, as I mentioned. In a large PUD, we allow a limited amount of certain types of commercial development, which wasn't allowed when this was originally approved. And as you say, that the traffic impact analysis would probably I'm sure would no longer be good, and that would have to be redone, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then I'm going to follow up one more, if I may. Twice they've been asked to enter into an agreement, and those are incomplete. What is the hesitancy on?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Due to the microphones here.
Actually, I'm getting hearing aids at the end of the month, so we should be better.
All right. On item 2 and 3, they were asked to enter into agreements with the city.
Right.
They're not asked to do anything but enter into an agreement.
Right.
Is there a reason those haven't been completed? Is there a financial impact if they do?
I don't know why they haven't been completed. There's been no, they didn't approach us about completing them, so they weren't completed.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at this time, back to my little script here. The applicant may now testify. Please state your name and address for the record.
Andrew, testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear that?
Yep.
Andrew Montgomery with Terraforma Architects and Planners in Portland. My address is 645 Southwest Viewmont Drive, 97225. Since there's some new committee members, I've been asked to show our little marketing flick. You guys interested? Okay. Welcome, new members. Let me see if I can get it going here. And roughly, or just quickly while it's loading here, this is our website, and you can go to it and look at the different units. And there's, I don't know if any of you have been to the, oops, it's going right away. Here we go. Can we turn down the lights a little bit?
Best we can do. Best we can do. It's on 52.
About 9 months later, the market crashed, and you can kind of see out there what happened. Everybody was laid off, and the bank was one of the first to go under when they started to topple. The bank that loaned us the money to do the first 2 phases went under, and long story short, my client, Teeny LLC, is in a legal mess kind of with the FDIC, so they're working on that. So we have had a lot of interest in buying the units. If you go out there, you'll see we got 3 sold before this all happened, and there's probably 8 or 9 that are about anywhere between 30 and 90% complete, and foundations in for 3 others. So there's not a lot you can do without money. The owner has been hanging on. He has not been able to afford consultants even. This funding has stopped totally. So that's his problem. Why should the city approve an extension? There's 2 reasons why it's good for the city. One is the PUD there's nothing like it, and there probably will be nothing like it again. What a PUD is this land, for those of you guys that don't know, this land is zoned residential, and it's 7.5 units per acre. And you can see how that is developed generally by a developer in a lot of subdivisions around town, and in fact the one right next door. They go in, they clear the land, and they put in 50 by 100s or whatever, and little pink houses, right? Well, if you drive through our property, the PUD, which is a planned unit development, allows you to cluster development. So you go higher density, and the idea is to save the critters in the forest. Well, the original developer, Lincoln Highlands Limited Partnership, who got this approval back in '96, one of their partners, Marge Boyd's son, was actually an environmentalist, and he hired a woman that is not still around, but she helped write the documents on this, and they're very stringent about how to develop in there. They have an environmental control officer that watches the contractor's every move and has to write reports. About a third of the property was saved that you can't touch, you can't even drive on. They increased the setbacks from wetlands and from waterways, from storm. There's some small creeks in there and different things, and I won't get into all the too deeply, but there's requirements of this project that are above and beyond what's required by law to develop a project, and that's one of the reasons why it's a good PUD. If this were to expire, who knows what would happen to the property, and it is a beautiful site if you haven't been there, especially up on top of what do they call that knoll up there? The knoll. But you can see all of Lincoln City into the south up there, and it's a gateway back to some beautiful hikes. I still do those hikes with my family, and anyway, you guys probably do too. So that's one reason. If that goes away, then you're just subject to the typical kind of developer coming in and doing what they do. The second reason is that both the owners, there's 2 owners now, and still, there has been since '96, Teeny Development and LLC are both in the process of trying to sell this thing and refinance it. One owner is trying to refinance and working with the FDIC, Teeny Development, doing a loan modification. That's happening right now. And the other is trying to just sell her piece, which is Block B, and I think it's about 14 or, 23 acres up in the middle. Yeah. So, obviously, here's how it would be a benefit for you to keep this. They're selling this with this to the world. And they're talking to people all over the world about investing in this eco-sanctuary. If this PUD isn't in place, they can't say that this is in place. It's just subdivision land. And approvals for this take hundreds of thousands of dollars and many years. Richard, in today's dollars, how much did this cost to get, for Marge to get this approved, would you guess? I think she said it was something like $200,000 at that time, back in '96. And it took them like 7 years, right?
I'm not sure. It was before my time, but it was a prolonged process.
Okay. Well, a PUD, like you mentioned earlier, like this, takes a lot of studies. They studied the lizards, and they studied the butterflies on the knoll, and they studied the owls, and they have wetlands mitigation projects, and there's just a traffic analysis. There's a whole plethora of studies that happen, and it takes years to get through the planning commission process, and a lot of money. So if this goes away, that process gets started all over again with the next person who picks it up in a fire sale. Okay? So what? Well, if it's in place, the new owner can go ahead and work on the refinements and the requests of the city to do new studies, but he can also go ahead and get the Block A and A prime going up and turning a profit, selling units and creating some cash flow. That's a lot more attractive, and it gets people to work in town here. Jeff was a major provider of employment in the city there for a while. I mean, we were building 2 subdivisions. One had over 100 units, little townhouses, Block A, that Richard showed you, and the other one was this first one, Maplewood. So it's more attractive to a developer to have this PUD in place, and I believe it's good for the city because we can get going and get back to work as soon as the funding is in place. So those are the 2 reasons. The great environmental piece that was built, the PUD approval, and we can get up and going quicker. In fact, we could have had more units sold on Maplewood right now. There is a waiting list. People have responded to that, but it can't because it's tied up in court. We can't sell any more units. So that's
Even on the finished subdivision that you have up there, you're
yes,
kind of
yes.
stuck in the water. Okay.
Yes, we're stuck, and it looks like when you drive up there, it looks like all of a sudden, you know, the plug was pulled, and it was. They literally stopped our funds in its tracks. And the reason we haven't been doing anything that costs money, like some of the things, the conditions, was just because there was no money to do the consultant stuff. So the owners have tried to do the cleanup and keep the invasives down, but the funds for the other stuff. And as far as the agreement goes, my recollection was that it would, the agreements for the water, and I may be incorrect, but we thought that it was coming from the city because they have the numbers about what, you know, it was going to cost, but I don't know. That was last year. But anyway, they've done what they could on there as far as invasive species control and cleanup. And the stuff that costs a lot, like asphalt lifts and, you know, attorneys, they haven't.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Montgomery?
Question?
I'm still going back, and I don't know if you can answer this. I'm still going back. You've said they were out of money, and I appreciate that. Tough times. What would it have cost to enter into these agreements that were required?
I'm sorry. That particular one, there was a misunderstanding because you're right. It was just a matter of writing it up, and we thought that the city was instigating that. So,
Instigating what?
the document.
Okay.
And they have recently agreed to go back and do that. So that should be coming.
Oh, those are in progress then.
Yes.
Okay.
I understand they are.
Anybody else?
That's a quick question. Do you feel we'll be doing this every year or two until the economy turns around?
You know, I've been with Jeff since 2001 when he bought it, and getting financing is it's a tricky thing, and you can't say for sure, you know, who's going to step up and do it, especially in this economy. So that's why I asked for, last year I asked for 5, because it seems like this economy, the way it is now, is going to take a while to get back. But they wanted to grant a year, so here we are. I would hope not. Both the owners have told me that they've got people interested, and it could happen. So I've asked for 2 years here, just so I don't have to do this again next year, but I don't know for sure. We hope. We hope so.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I got one question. When was the last time you had discussions with the tribe about completing their portion of the project?
Boy, I'm not privy to that information.
And do you have any other set times for further discussion, or?
If he needs to come up and speak here, if he's going to testify, we can't hear him in the microphone and record him. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Would you state your name?
This is Jeff Teeney from Teeney Development, LLC. How you doing? Hi. Thanks for your time. Yeah, we have had ongoing discussions with them. They are also affected by this economy, and that is their primary reason for not moving forward with their portion of the project, and we just haven't been able to convince them to move. I don't... Sorry, does that answer your question? They continue to say they still plan to fulfill their obligations under the agreements, but that's been the same situation now for... They were executed in 2005. They were supposed to be done in 3 years. You know, here we are 6 years, 7 years later, and they haven't started. So, unfortunately, I'm not able to influence them. They're a sovereign nation. You know how it is. They're, I don't know. I can't get them to move.
Okay, thank you.
Question?
Yeah. Can you project in the future, and would there logically be a time when you would have to say to yourself, perhaps this project isn't going to happen? I mean, is that on your agenda of possibilities, and at what point, you know, would you concede that you probably cannot get the financing for this?
Well, the financing is a little bit more complicated than just getting the financing, because we actually have the financing. We have the existing lender ready, willing, and able to do a loan modification. We have the terms of that loan modification agreed to, and that is going to happen sometime in the next 3 to 6 months. I have 175 people who are predominantly retirees with their IRAs invested in this project, and we have tens of millions of dollars invested in this project. So the fact that it's not going to happen, in my mind, is no, it is going to happen one way or another. It might take 2 or 3 more years for the economy to recover, where the economics become once again viable. I mean, when you look at, you know, the product that we built, at the time it was a superior product than anything around, but it cost us $100 a foot to build it. Today everything's selling for $50 a foot, so I can't compete with that particular product. I can start another subdivision with a different product that's not quite so expensive, and that would be, you know, the Fernwood project is, you know, we have a lot of demand for that product. I mean, I had 50 people that were signed up for reservations, and they were really excited about it. It had a $199,000 price point, 1,200 square foot, 2-bedroom townhouse at the beach. It was a good product for 09.
And all the plumbing's in. I mean, we were going... The infrastructure. We were full stream, and this isn't going to ever end, and having a great time, and all of a sudden. So...
Yeah, we had a $21 million loan approved, that they drew 10 million down and stopped. I mean, so that was the reason why we had so much under construction is, the economy was booming back then. That was July '07 when we started.
And that lender went under, and then a new lender, the IC took over and sold it to a new lender, and that's who he's dealing with now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I get confused, too, about the...
Yeah, it's a service provider, but they're ultimately working for the FDIC.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I should also point out that you had at your seat tonight a written comment from one person. And I also didn't mention that in the packet you have is an Exhibit B, which if you decide to grant an extension, it's suggested conditions of approval, which are essentially the same as the ones from this past year, with the dates have been changed.
Where is Exhibit B located here?
Well, it's...
Oh, it's at the very end, okay. It
Well,
basically
no, that's
the
the
same-
old Exhibit B, actually. It's,
In the middle. Second.
have in the packet the staff report from tonight, then the applicant's materials, and then
Okay.
Exhibit B after the second blue sheet, I think.
Okay, I've got it, thank you.
Mr. Townsend, do we have any discussion about the Clancy Road?
You certainly are free to discuss it. That's, Clancy Road is involved in the third phase, which, I'll say the third village. It may not be the third phase, just depends on how the developer chooses to develop it. Right now, they're in phase 1, which is the southern end. Clancy Road is in the northern end. And to serve the existing area does not require the use of Clancy Road.
Didn't we have some discussion on Clancy Road several years ago?
Yes,
And what was our conclusion to that discussion?
that we don't need to decide yet, and that fundamentally, in order to develop that third phase, that northern part, they're going to have to demonstrate that they have access. And that will include input from ODOT, because they get to say who gets to access their highway where. And also, I'm sure the issue of Clancy Road as a public road versus a private road will have to be resolved before you could make a finding that there was adequate access.
Okay. So, for now, this letter we have pertaining to Clancy Road tonight is entered into the record?
Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's see here. Now it's time for other public testimony. Anybody else wish to say anything? Does any member of the audience wish to speak in favor of this proposal? Any members of the audience wish to speak against this proposal? Anybody with neutral testimony? Is there any testimony from representatives or public agencies? Stephanie, do you have anything? No?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Reed, the city engineer. I just wanted to clarify, entering into the agreements, the question that came up about why that didn't happen this year. It's in order for any more water or sewer to be used, either new units built that use our sewer or any new units above or Maplewood that need to use the water. The system that we built, we had to move ahead with some of our public improvements, and so instead of making two improvements, one now and one in the future for villages, we combined those improvements and went ahead and built the improvements needed to serve the future for the water side for the villages. So the agreement does need to make sure that the money that the city has spent gets paid back by when at such time when villages does need to use that infrastructure. So we need to nail that down in that dollar amount. But it's still a condition of approval that they would have needed to build this improvement anyway. So The agreement is for all parties to be clear about how much it is going to cost, how much it cost us, and what their proportionate share of that improvement is. And then same within the future, because as we move ahead, we will probably end up upgrading the sewer station, the sewer pump station. And again, we're not going to build 2 sewer pump stations. We're going to build one that serves both the existing flows and the flows that the villages are going to add to it, and they'll need to reimburse us for our share of that additional capacity. So this year, we were expecting villages to initiate a contract and say, here's a draft, what do you guys think? And they were expecting us to do the same. So this year we have a plan. If this gets approved, we'll go ahead and Teeny and I talked about how we're going to get that ball moving so we won't end up the same place next year without an agreement. I'm confident that we'll be able to make that happen. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I make a recommendation that when we have the proposal come before the board, that we put in there that the developer will come back in 6 months with a progress report as to where he is, commitments, so we can kind of have a way to track it and, know what's going to happen next year?
Sure, we could add that to the conditions of approval, couldn't we, Richard?
Yes, you could.
Yes, okay. No, that's fine. That's a good idea. Anybody else?
Well, one concern I'm having is, as I went up there, is the maintenance of the properties that haven't been sold. I don't know who's in charge of that, if there's any kind of bonding set up to take care of what's there. I'm seeing some properties fall apart pretty quick.
Did you guys want to answer that question for him, please? Could somebody come forward?
This is Jeff Teeny again. Say that. Okay.
Sure.
The properties that are currently sold have what's called a common wall agreement, and they take care of their own. The homeowners association was really something that they did not want to participate in, so they didn't want to pay the extra money for that. So they're maintaining their own properties. The road that is accessible to the public currently, again, I need to just, I guess humbly apologize that we just haven't had the funds to continue the landscaping and the maintenance.
So the homes that exist that are not occupied are owned by private owners?
No, they're owned by the FDIC.
Okay.
The lender is...
All right. I wasn't clear on who was responsible for
Yeah,
the
we're in a very complex litigation process. We have been for a couple of years.
That's fine.
It could potentially take a couple more years, but if the loan modification is successful, which we do feel it will be, that issue will be resolved, and again, it'll be 90 days if I had to anticipate, but it could take as much as 6 months. The devil's in the details with those complex transactions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. There's no further testimony. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. We on to some discussion or the pleasure of the commission at this point. Richard, is that what I'm...
Yeah, you make deliberation and discussion.
Deliberation and tentative decision?
Yeah, actually, your decision.
Michelle, what do you think?
I'd sort of like to go with a 2-year extension rather than be here again in a year having the same discussion. Economically, I don't see things improving very quickly. So I'm kind of for going until whatever the recommendation was, if it was a 2-year recommendation.
I believe it was.
With the conditions of agreement in place, and maybe pop in every 6 months and tell us what's going on.
Don?
I'm good with that, too.
Okay. Doug?
Well, I kind of like a 1 year, but I see the rationale behind a 2 year. However, I'm more optimistic. I think the economy will get better. So I'll stay with the 1 year.
We can hope.
Dennis, do you have any input or tentative decision questions?
The only difference is I'd like to see some forward progress on the meetings with the city coming in and entering those agreements. Other than that, I could live with 1 or 2 years. I think 2 years is probably more prudent this time. I'm hoping the economy will turn around tomorrow, but I'm a bit optimistic. I'm hoping 2 years we're not here again, that it's all developed and all sold and we're all looking happy.
There you go. Good attitude. Judy, how about you?
I agree with the 2-year extension, and then also I think the 6-month monitoring is a good idea.
Okay, well, I agree with everybody else. I was here a year ago, and here we are, so the 2-year sounds good to me. I think that's... hopefully the economy turns quicker than that, but if it does, it's going to be a slow catch-up anyway. So I'm in agreement with everybody else about the 6 months check and the 2 years. So do we have anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can I suggest that the motion, if it's going to be for 2 years, that it would be extended approvals through January 7th,
Okay.
2014. And the reason I say that date, that's a planning commission meeting night, so that if in 2 years we're back here, we were in the same situation, it's around, it's...
No lapse of
Right.
time. Okay, sounds good to me. Anyone like to make a motion, please?
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
then what I'm assuming we're voting on is Exhibit B?
Essentially, yes. The Exhibit B will become part of the final order with that date change to whatever date you set for 2 years, if it's 2 years, and an additional condition requiring a progress report every 6 months from the applicants.
And can that progress report be delivered to us in writing, or does it?
It's up to you, whatever you want it to be.
You can make that in your motion.
Seen the presentation.
a different date for the...
I've seen them come in front of us if they could.
Yeah.
Can work that out.
Somebody make a motion, please.
So good at that. That's probably being a challenge.
I'll take it on.
Okay, thank you.
I move we approve Exhibit B for Cascade Head Village extension to January 7th of 2014, with the condition that they come back to us in person before the board every 6 months between now and then, and give us an update report on how they're meeting the requirements of our approval.
Okay, is that good enough, Richard?
Yes.
Okay. And,
Second?
okay. Kate, can we have a roll call, please?
Casper,
Yes.
Shannon,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Bryson,
Yes.
Pureborn.
Yes. Okay, then it's approved.
Quick clarification.
Yes.
This would mean then that the agreements would be together within 6 months, since that's when the first 6 months report would be? Is that what we're reflecting?
No, I don't think so.
No?
Getting
Okay.
This gets progress.
progress.
Update.
Just an update on the process.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so it has been approved. Agenda is old business. Questions? Okay. Okay. Old business. There's none scheduled. And new business, Richard? Or Deborah?
Good evening. I have been here the last couple times mentioning about our walking and biking plan, and just some information about our transportation planning that's going on this year. And I just want to follow that up with some information about Complete Streets. There are a couple people here who are actually on our Project Advisory Committee and Technical Advisory Committee, so some of you are more familiar than others. But I want to mention Complete Streets because we bring it up once in a while. We use that term without really explaining what it is and why we care about it. So let me pull up my PowerPoint here. I just have couple things that I think you might find interesting. One is that there is a website, so if you want to know more about this or see an entire slide presentation about this, you can go to completestreets.org. But National Complete Streets Coalition is a group of advocates and transportation professionals working to enact complete streets policies across the country. They suggest that we know what to do to build a street that serves people who are walking and biking, as well as people who are driving in cars and people who are taking transit. So it's a matter of finding the motivation and the money, to do that. In particular, they are saying when we build new infrastructure, we have to make sure it addresses all those population groups, all those transportation modes. And they talk about the amount. These are just a few slides from that slideshow that's at completestreets.org. But they point out that a lot of the trips that we take are under 3 miles. A lot of them are under 1 mile, so they are walkable. And in our pearls, we find that we have a lot of population within a short walking distance to stores, to neighbors, to community facilities. But we tend to drive. So we want to make it more comfortable for walking and biking. Who wants complete streets? I've mentioned before that we have a growing elderly population here, and it becomes more and more important for them to feel comfortable walking when they do no longer feel comfortable driving. So this is from ARP, and it's talking about the percentage of people in some questionnaire they had, survey, about whether they feel safe to cross the street and whether they would like to walk more. And they find, of course, that people would like to be able to cross the street safely, and not just the elderly, but 55% of Americans would like to walk more and drive less. And I've mentioned before, when people are here on vacation, I think that probably is even a higher percentage. People would just as soon not get in their car after their drive to the coast. Transit use is another big factor, and even though it's a separate mode, you have to walk to the transit stop. So it involves walking, and if people don't feel safe walking, it's going to cut down on their use of transit. This third point here on this slide points out something that I've mentioned before. We have a lot of people who are not able to drive, or who do not choose to drive. But we have 10-11% of our population is too young to drive. And then we have this growing number of elderly, some of whom do not drive, some who maybe in the next 10 years will not be driving. We also have a number of low-income people who cannot afford to drive. Driving is pretty expensive. I've got a couple slides that show that. This just points out what I said about transit. It involves a lot of walking. So people who take transit tend to meet their daily minimum requirement for activity. So it's a benefit in more than one way. We are very aware of the need to provide for Americans with disabilities, and our Public Works Department is already working on that, and in doing complete streets, that is, of course, one of their main goals, and so it goes, again, hand in hand. Health is another big reason, and I believe I mentioned something about that last time, and I have some interesting graphics that I got off of this website that goes along with that. Diabetes is a big problem, and it's a growing problem among young people as well as the older people. Diabetes and high blood pressure both have to do with the amount of exercise that people get. And here's a graph that shows, Oregon is at the good end of this, which is nice to see, but the more people walk and bike, the less they are subject to diseases such as diabetes. And so it's just emphasizes the need to keep people active. And our role in that is to make sure people are comfortable walking and biking. And they can choose for themselves whether they want to walk and bike, but at least if they have the option that they feel is safe and comfortable, then it truly is an option for them. Obesity is a big problem. As you can see on this, we're comparing the United States to other countries in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Europe. And again, the percentage of obesity declines as walking, biking, and transit increase. I am going to go to this website. Whoops, here. This shows a map of the increasing incidence of obesity in the United States. And it just starts changing. Here's the year. Here are the categories. So far, everyone's under 20% in 1993. And then we get to 1997, and all of a sudden they've had to add a new category up to 24%. And now we've added a category up to 30%. And you'll notice, even by 2010, even Colorado has over 20%, and Oregon is up in the 25 to 29% obesity. A lot of lifestyle factors and eating go into this, but also it's a matter of how we get around and what we do in our spare time and whether or not we feel comfortable with biking and walking. Okay, let's see. There we go. Okay. So moving on, another factor is the expense. And here is a source, the Center for Neighborhood Technology Calculations. Now, I'm not familiar with this. I haven't verified this. I have seen other statistics on other sites. But the fact is that we spend maybe 20 or 30% of our income on transportation. And our next slide actually includes Portland, and they measured that at 31%, more than they spend on housing. So it can be a huge expense, and if we can provide a safe and comfortable alternative for those people who cannot afford to spend that kind of income on their transportation needs, then we're all better off. In Lincoln City, 44% of our households earn less than $25,000. So if you consider that a third of that may be going for transportation, that's a pretty big hit. So having the option of feeling comfortable going out walking, biking, getting to work or exercising or doing your daily errands, it's a feeling of empowerment. It's also about social and community interaction and life and health, as we pointed out, and economics. This is an interesting comparison that was from that website. They're showing that we can actually have a lot greater capacity on our roadways if people are walking and biking, because you can either have people in cars, or if you have people, they take up a lot less space than the cars, or on bicycles and foot, or I assume this represents people riding on a bus. The Complete Streets has been trying to get communities and states to sign an agreement that they will provide complete streets whenever they build new infrastructure. And in Oregon, we do have ORS 366-514 that actually states that when we do, and I won't go to this site just to save time, but it says in the opening paragraph that when we build streets, we need to consider facilities for bikes and pedestrians as well as cars. And it seems so reasonable, but there have been times in the past, I think in the 70s, I know in other communities where I've been, they just didn't bother about building sidewalks anymore. They built sidewalks, as other older neighborhoods developed, and then I guess they figured, well, everybody goes by car. I was at a conference or a training recently, and I was kind of shocked to hear it was somebody who worked for ODOT, and he said that when they decide whether or not a street light, a traffic control light, is needed, they look at certain warrants, and the warrants are criteria or standards. And if you meet the standards, then you should have a traffic control light. And he got to the one that said in a school neighborhood, and that was a warrant for additional consideration in having a street light. And he says, but nobody walks to school anymore. And that probably is true too. But is it an effect of having a neighborhood that isn't walkable, or the parents don't feel safe in sending their kids across 5 lanes of Highway 101 to get to school? So, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing, because if it's not safe, then you're right, probably we're not going to see too many people out there unless they absolutely have no other choice. So anyway, I just want to mention again that we have our walking and biking plan website. It is lincolncitypedbike.org. We also have a Facebook page that you can get to from the website, but this includes all the reports that have been generated so far. It includes some news articles and other things that are highlighting the walking and biking issues in our community. And we have a big event coming up on January 28th. This is our first public event. We have had committee meetings up until now, but now we want to get as many people out from across the community as we can. We have paired it with the Jambalaya Cook-Off, which is on the 4th floor that day from 11 to 2. And our event is open house here is going to be from 11:30 to 2:30. So we're trying to make it as convenient as we can and enticing for people to come out that day. We will have various stations. The consultants will be here. Our ODOT liaison will be here. And we'll have opportunities for hands-on activities. We'll have the maps out and the markers, and we hope people will let us know their concerns, where they think improvements are needed. And we also will be suggesting some improvements, toolkit, that tools that have been used in other communities, and we'd like their reaction to where those might work in Lincoln City, or whether they think they're appropriate or not appropriate. And specifically in their neighborhoods, would they like to see some of these kinds of improvements? So that's basically my pitch for this evening. I hope everybody will come out on the 28th of this month. It's going to be right here in the council chambers. And I hope that the planning commissioners will join us also.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
No other new business.
No other new business, okay. And reports from the Community Development Director.
Have nothing?
And Joan is not here. Planning Commissioners, do you have anything you'd like to bring up, talk about? No more public? How are we doing on our vacant seat filled?
They should be, I think it's going to happen at the next city council meeting. They should do it. I believe that's the schedule.
Did have some applicants and...
Yeah, actually there's 2 vacancies, because I think Commissioner Casper's first term has expired, although she serves until her replacement is appointed, so and she could be her replacement. So, but yeah, there's as far as I know, we have the 2 vacancies, or the 2 positions up for appointment, and 6 applicants. So.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Okay, our next meeting is...
It is Tuesday, January 17th at 6 here. We'll have a public hearing on a small subdivision in the Nelscott area, and a review of Planning Commission rules and procedures.
Okay. Anything else, anybody? Yep. Well, welcome back, everyone. Let's have it done, and And I'll get better at this as time goes on, I'm sure. Okay. Meeting's adjourned.